Hi, I know you're all keen to see what happens in episode 3. I'm keen to find out as well, of course. However, I'm not going to be able to record it just yet. Real life has gotten in the way. I've had a very, very busy last few weeks at my day job. I've had a commission, a role-playing commission that I've had to finish that has already slipped a little bit, that I'm basically trying to get done as quickly as possible. And it's just mean that some things have slipped back a bit on the back burner, and this campaign has been one of them. And yeah, really I just wanted to take this video to introduce Borin as a player hero, because that's one thing I have done. I've gotten him prepared, I've statted him up as a proper player hero, and I wanted to introduce him as such. I wanted to go through the decisions I made in terms of how to stat him up from being the NPC that he was to being somebody that I'll be controlling with a full set of stats. And that's it. So I'm going to basically just, yeah, show you Borin, maybe talk about the starting situation, because I've had a little bit of thought about how that's happened, how Finolf is kind of being put up close to danger in a place where it's not too outlandish to think that he might come out of it without being captured or killed or something like that. Yeah. So I guess we'll start with the situation since I've just started mentioning it. Finolf was brought to this ruin, I guess we would call it, that is a little bit secluded. There's ruins all around, like dotted all over the place. So this one's a little bit more secluded than others. I'm saying that there's going to be a stream nearby just because that kind of takes care of a bit of a problem if there wasn't one nearby. And plenty of secluded grazing for Finolf's horse and Borin's pony. And again, that's just so I don't have to worry about these things. I don't have to think about them. They're handled off camera, if you will. They're narrative things that are just they're gonna be there for me when I come out of this. I don't want to think about that necessarily. I don't want to be too hard on myself. I've already been really, really hard on myself by, you know, not trying to like re-roll anything or botch anything or anything like that with what happened to Finolf. I think that's quite fitting and quite interesting. And he's still alive too, so you know, I'll be returning to Finolf for sure. And yeah, I think that's all I've really all I really want to talk about with that. So when episode 3 starts, I don't want to do much of an intro. I kind of want to jump into it with Borin kind of going on his way, going forward, going to this tower, towards this tower, which is I guess a little bit in the distance, but not too far, like 1 hex away, kind of. So that's the situation. To introduce Borin as a character, let's head over to Foundry. And I'm doing this in Foundry rather than in something like an interactive PDF because I'm using Foundry for my game, and it made the most sense just to create a player hero actor for him in Foundry and populate him that way, since that's effectively what I'm going to be using. So here he is, and those of you who are quite keen-eyed will have probably already noticed that he has, over on the right-hand side here of his character sheet, he has a Valor of 2 and a Wisdom of 2. And you might be thinking to yourself, if you're familiar with the mechanics and the character creation process of the One Ring, and especially Strider mode, that starting characters don't, or starting player heroes don't start with more than one of each of those. And this is going to be a theme as I go through this. Borin is not a typical starting player hero. He's not my main player hero. He is the companion that I rolled randomly to come with me, and I happened to roll a Gandalf rune when I was seeing how capable this person was. So if you remember, he's extremely capable. He's basically like a named warrior, one step kind of down from being maybe like somebody named in the official canon, if you will. And therefore I needed to get a balance of not making him so powerful that this whole thing would be a bit of a joke and a bit of a cakewalk. I want to have a challenge there as well, and this needs to feel dangerous, right? And yet I also didn't want him to feel like, you know, a noob. I didn't want him to feel like a dwarf who's just started out adventuring. He's been around. So I feel like I've got a good balance going here. He's got 1 each of Valor and Wisdom. Arguably, I could have bumped those up a bit more, but they started introducing quite a lot in the way of in the way of rewards and virtues that it just felt like a little bit too much, and I want to kind of save those. I really want to delve into those at a later date and really think about like which ones I'm choosing. And it just felt a little bit cheap for me personally to give him these really cool abilities the first time I'm controlling him. So I'm already giving him one extra of each. Anyway, so that's the first thing I've changed. The second thing is that I've given him a little bit more in the way of skill points. This doesn't look really ridiculous to my eye, but I have given him 25 experience points worth of starting XP just for skills here. And in Strider mode, you start with 15. So this is 10 extra starting experience points. But it's not just that, because what I've also done is I've also given him a free third point in a combat proficiency. Normally you would start with 2 in one and 1 in another one. So instead I've given him a freebie here with axes. And that freebie is worth 6 experience points if you were effectively starting off by the book. So in theory I've given him 31 starting experience points instead of the 15 recommended for Strider mode. So I've given him double the starting number of experience points if you want to look at it like that. Plus I've given him 1 extra valor and 1 extra wisdom. So that's quite a big bump. And looking at his stats, I decided to go with the character life paths supplement. I'm going to quickly show that on the screen here. So give me 1 second. And if we go to Dwarves of Durin's Folk, which is where he comes from, I rolled a 1, which is a life of toil. And just reading it here, it's right up here at the top here. Your ancestors crafted wondrous things out of shining stones and precious metals, while you have been forced to labor hard in the mines for less noble ore. Unfortunately, to this day, most ancient dwarf holds are no more than dragons' lairs or orc-infested pits. You toil patiently, peering into the gloom with eyes hungry for the gleaming of gems and gold. And you start with Strength 7, Heart 2, Wits of 5. Strength 7 is really, really good for fighting. Your favorite skill is Craft instead of... Well, you have a choice normally of Craft or Travel. So Craft, obviously, because being kind of toiling in the ground. And distinctive features of Secretive and Willful. Now, at first, I did actually think I might just cherry pick from the Dwarves of Durin's Folk what the available distinctive features are and take 2 that I kind of want to roleplay a bit more. But in the end, I decided to go with these because Secretive makes me think... I haven't been very... I haven't had a lot of kind of social commentary going with Borin during the travel phase. I haven't really had him come to the fore as a really vocal character, as an NPC. So I can kind of play that in here, that he's, you know, he likes to keep things to himself. He doesn't necessarily like to kind of just, you know, he's not very talkative. He's not really going to be sharing a lot about his personal life, that sort of thing. And although the secretive distinctive feature does kind of talk about concealing intentions, especially outsiders to your folk, it's also encompasses, you know, not sharing what you're thinking and keeping your emotions kind of behind this, like this wall, right? So I kind of like that. I like that he's this kind of quiet, stoic sort of type. He's got no need for boasting. He's kind of keeps his cards close to his chest and doesn't really necessarily share things that he doesn't need to with people, especially people who aren't dwarves. And willful, I mean, willful has a lot of connotations when I first read about it, but here it says you are firm in temperament and belief and usually base your actions solely on your own judgment. So I quite like that. I mean, he's made his mind up about things and his actions are based on those. He's firm. Yeah, he's made his mind up about something. He's going to do it. And I quite like that as well. It's this kind of like stubborn sort of, hard-headed dwarf is kind of tropish, but it does kind of work. So that's what I did here for A Life of Toil. And then if we go to the major events, I rolled on that and I got another 1. So I rolled 2 1s here. And the 1 here is Destitute. And this really fit as well because what it says here is your family was impoverished by great misfortune, forcing you to toil harder than most, hence toiling in the mines, right? Lower your standard of living by 1 tier, so he's now at the frugal. I'm just going to check that on my character sheet. No, standard of living drops to common, not frugal. So common instead of frugal. That means his horse or pony isn't quite as good. And you start the game with 5 additional points of previous experience. Aha, so that 31 XP actually comes back down to kind of 26 now that I gave myself, because he gets 5 extra ones here. But really that destitute, because I wasn't really rolling for mechanical benefits necessarily, because I was kind of cherry picking and creating this character how I thought he should look. What I was really interested in was the kind of narrative back history for it. And the destitute made me think, that's why this named dwarf is going off with this young barding. He might be saying it's because he wants to make sure he doesn't come to any harm, but really he needs the money, right? He's destitute. He wants to kind of improve his fortunes. He's always on the lookout for treasure and that sort of thing. So even though, you know, I'm playing him as a champion, that's the other thing, his calling is a champion. I did like this hook that he's destitute, that he's, you know, his standard of living is dropped down. He's poorer than other members of his culture. And yeah, it just fit in really nicely. So that's from a sort of narrative backstory perspective. That's what I've got. If we jump back over to Foundry here, just looking at it, you can see his standard of living is common. Calling, I went with champion because that kind of made sense for him. And dropping down then here, distinctive features, we've got Balin as his patron. So I can spend fellowship points to make a combat roll favored. That's going to be really powerful, and it's going to be very, very helpful when he's fighting. He's got enemy lore. I've decided to go with trolls because he was up in the mountains, and I kind of like the idea of there being trolls in the mountains. I love trolls anyway. I think trolls are the greatest of the sort of, you know, I play a lot of Warhammer, so I call them like greenskin, you know, enemies. And yeah, I just really like trolls. I like them from a sort of Scandinavian mythological perspective as well. And I just kind of go that way. So when I had to pick a different, like pick an enemy type, I've gone trolls. And I know there are trolls in the troll shaws in the game too. So I might feature some trolls in a future episode. I don't know. So let's look at rewards and virtues. I decided to go with him having an axe, as you can see here, which I've called Egil's Great Axe. So this is a great axe. It has a damage value of 7, an injury rating of 20, and a load value of 4. And rather than messing with those values necessarily, I decided I wanted to go with like basically a double upgrade on Keen and make this into a named weapon, which is dipping into the sort of the Lore Master chapter, looking at kind of these kind of magical weapons or weapons that have exceptionally good qualities to them, and gave it the superior Keen reward, which is like doubling up on Keen. And what that means for weapons of dwarven craftsmanship, which this is, it's going to score a piercing blow on a result of 8 or higher. So that's going to be really helpful, hopefully, when I'm getting into fights. That I'm going to be hopefully rolling piercing blows more often, like causing wounds more often. Or possibly, like if they've got a lot of armor or thick skin or whatever, then that's not going to happen. And in terms of virtues, the first one I went with was hardiness, to get his endurance kind of jacked up a little bit. And then Durin's Way was the cultural one that I went with. And basically what this one is that because he's spent his life toiling in a mine, and yet he's a renowned fighter, it kind of made sense that he's really good at fighting underground because he's quite at home underground. So this one gives your parry rating +2 when you're fighting underground or in otherwise cramped quarters like inside a building. So we'll see if that's helpful. I hope it will be, but we'll see. But that kind of made a lot of sense to me narratively, rather than trying to go for some sort of like, you know, power build that's going to help with this particular adventure site. Fatigue. He's had 10 fatigue. I calculated fatigue getting from Bree to here. I'm not going to go through the exact numbers to crunch to get there, but 10 is the number that he's got coming out at the end of it. And he has a load of 9 from his equipment. If you look down here at his equipment, being a dwarf, his mail shirt, normally the load for a mail shirt is 9. It's reduced by half, rounded up, so he's got a load of 5 on that. So 5 + 4. He's also got a dagger. I haven't given him a lot of extra stuff because he's destitute. And starting equipment and gear, I'm still thinking about what to give him there. I haven't made my mind up about that, but I'll have it ready in time for when we're going forward. And treasure, he's got 35 to start off with. And that is basically, yeah, that's basically Borin. What do you think? Do you think this looks good? Would you have done something a bit differently? Would you maybe have given him slightly more experience in one area, or more skills, more combat proficiency? These are all things I debated about, but again, I didn't want to give myself. I want to give myself a challenge. I don't want to make this too easy on myself. I really want to have there be a risk that something, that Boren could also die potentially on this as he's going in by himself. But he's a brave named warrior, and he's going to do it anyway. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your comments on what you think. And as always, if you like my channel, you like the content, and you haven't already, so please subscribe, because it really helps my channel to grow. It keeps me motivated as well. And likewise, liking the video if you like it makes me happy. So, make me happy. All right, cheers. And I don't know when I'm going to be recording the next one. There might be a little bit of a delay before it comes out, episode 3, but I'm going to be working on that as quickly as I can once I've got all this other stuff out of the way. Holidays behind me, and I'm back ready in the One Ring, ready to go. So thanks very much. Catch you next time.